This is Read the Report, and I'll be reading from pages 84 and 85 of the executive summary of the TRC report. It's a section called Arranging and Blocking Marriages, and my name is Allison Norman. Through the residential schools, Indian Affairs and church officials sought to extend their control into the most intimate aspects of the lives of Aboriginal children. Indian Affairs officials believed that because the department had spent money educating students, it had gained the right to determine whom they married. Government officials feared that if students married someone who had not also been educated at a residential school, they would revert to traditional, quote, uncivilized, end quote, ways. The control of marriage was part of the ongoing policy of forced assimilation. In 1890, Indian Commissioner Hayter Reed criticized Capel principal Joseph Huguenard for allowing female students from the Capel school to marry boys who had not gone to school, without first getting Indian Affairs approval. Reed argued, quote, "The contention that the parents have the sole right to decide such matters cannot for one moment be admitted," end quote. The government not only encouraged marriage between students, but it also began to make marriage part of the process of getting out of residential school. In his annual report for 1896, Deputy Minister Hayter Reed wrote, quote, "It is considered advisable, where pupils are advanced in years and considered capable of providing for themselves, to bring about a matrimonial alliance, either at the time of being discharged from the school or as soon after as possible," end quote. In other words, the principals were expected to arrange marriages for the older students. Principals regularly reported and celebrated student marriages, and indeed did often arrange them. Reverend P. Klassen, principal of the Cooper Island School, reported in 1909 that he had succeeded in, quote, "engaging one of our leaving girls with one of our best old boys," end quote. Kamloops School principal A. M. Carrion reported, quote, "It is gratifying to note again that since my last report, 2 more couples of ex-pupils have been united in the bonds of holy wedlock. The ex-pupils who marry other ex-pupils are better able to retain the habits of civilized life, which they acquired at the school," end quote. Efforts were also made to block marriages deemed to be unsuitable. In 1895, Indian agent Magnus Begg told members of the Blackfoot Reserve that, quote, "no young man could marry a girl from an industrial or boarding school without having prepared a house with 2 rooms and owning cows with the necessary stabling, etc., end quote. In that same year, principals and Indian agents were instructed to seek departmental permission prior to allowing students to marry. Principals continued to arrange marriages into the 1930s. In 1936, the principal of the Roman Catholic school at Onion Lake prepared a list of students who had turned 16 and who he believed should not be discharged. He noted that he insisted on keeping the students since he would, quote, "always try to marry them as soon as they leave the school," end quote. He wanted to keep one 18-year-old student in the school until the fall threshing was complete. Then she would be married to a former pupil. He wanted to keep another 18-year-old until, quote, "she gets married during the year," end quote. In 1922, the head of the Presbyterian Church's Winnipeg Committee on Indian Work urged the government to make it, quote, "unlawful for a pupil or ex-pupil of the school to marry or be married without the permission of the Indian agent," end quote. The Presbyterian, they proposed that the children of such unauthorized marriages be denied treaty annuities until they reach the age of 21 and be prohibited from attending school. Although the measure was not adopted, it is reflective of the Church's lack of respect for the autonomy of Aboriginal people.